If you would please remain standing for the reading of God's word. We are camped out in the Gospel of John, and today's reading we are in chapter 18, verse 33. Pilate then went back inside the palace, summoned Jesus and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Is that your own idea?" Jesus asked. "Or did others talk to you about me?" "Am I a Jew?" Pilate replied. "Your own people and chief priests handed you over to me. What is it you have done?" Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place." This is the word of God for us today. Y'all can have a seat.
Morning. Did anybody have to come by canoe this morning? You guys all right? We spent Friday, we went to go see the Newsies at the high school, at the Cape High School, because we wanted to see Corbin Matisic and a few others. Where's Corbin? Yes! And we ended up spending that amount of time in a stairwell huddled up against a wall while sirens went off. Awesome. So it's, I don't know, we may be at different levels in the room, but for some of us, it's been a week, right? And so just want to acknowledge that and know that some people that was just a little bump, some people bigger than a little bump. So we're glad that you're here today. As we are going through the series preparing for Easter, what we're looking at is several themes in the book of John, not sequential, but just kind of themes in general, where it touches on some points of human life that contain both the best things and the worst things about us. And we have to figure out, what do we do with those things as followers of Jesus? How do we incorporate those things into our worldview? How do we engage with them? We talked about things like freedom and justice and love and spirituality. And this week, talking about a subject that feels a little touchy, it's the subject of power. And power, especially in certain circles, has been quite the hot topic for the last, maybe like decade or so, where there is a lot of energy around who should have it, who shouldn't have it. How do we regulate the people that do? How do we respond to issues of power? What happens when someone doesn't have it? Is that right? Is that wrong? Lots of kind of hot conversations around that subject. And so I just want to spend our time today looking really at two figures that engage with power quite differently. And in John chapter 13, it says it was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. And the evening meal was in progress. The devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. And Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal. He took off his outer clothing. He wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. This is our image of power. As followers of Jesus, this is what we see when we look at God. Power is something that's pretty unavoidable. We talked about it, I think it was last week, that we actually don't see God as fundamentally power, and out of that comes love. We see God as fundamentally loving. God is love, and out of his love comes his power. So what does power look like as an expression of ultimate love? When Jesus has this meal following this time when he washes his disciples' feet. After that meal, he is arrested, and he's drug around all night between a couple of different people. There's Caiaphas, the high priest, and then there's Herod Antipas, not Herod the Great of Jesus' birth. That's Herod Antipas's dad who passed away. Herod Antipas is the ruler of a smaller region, bit of a nutty guy, and Jesus is bound, and because of Herod, he's dressed in mockery like a king. And after that, he's drugged to the house of the Roman governor, a person really that Jesus has kind of made famous in history, a man named Pilate. And Pilate is an interesting fellow, I guess. He is the most powerful person in the country. Look, there's the high priest who is basically in the pocket of Pilate. And then there's like people like Herod, who is definitely in Pilate's pocket. And his job is to hang back and to let these Jewish leaders that he's put in place interact with the people most as he kind of hangs back and like pulls the strings behind the scenes. But he's gotten in trouble a couple of times. He's gotten in trouble with Caesar for being too brutal. Now listen. When Caesar says, hey man, why don't you tone it down? That might tell you a little something about this guy. Routinely, a normal part of his life is executing people publicly. That's part of who he is. In fact, Tiberius Caesar gets so frustrated with the bloodbath that Pilate has against the Samaritans that he calls him back to Rome. And we don't know, like, is he going to be tried? Is he going to be demoted? Is he going to be made like, you're going to be made the governor of like the mail room in the back here? You know, like, what's going to happen with Pilate? As he's on the journey back to Jerusalem, Tiberius Caesar dies, and Pilate is kind of like lost in the shuffle of history from that point on. But that's who we're talking about. A man who like routinely executes people to keep his power. And it says in chapter 18, then the Jewish leaders took Jesus from Caiaphas to the palace of the Roman governor. By now, it was early morning, and to avoid ceremonial uncleanness, they did not enter the palace. It was made a Jewish person unclean to enter the house of a Gentile. So Pilate came out to them and said and asked, "What charges are you bringing against this man?" This is interesting. Like they've woken Pilate up early. Maybe not a morning person. Maybe you don't wake up the mass murderer a little early. What charges are you bringing against this person? This is great. If he were not a criminal, they replied, would we not have handed him over to you? They're like, charges. Do we have charges? I don't know that we have charges. I mean, like, look, buddy, if we're here, we've got a reason, whatever that might be. Pilate said, take him yourselves and judge him by your own law. That's interesting. They have this person who is in mockery dressed up. His hands are bound. He is a traveling preacher with a country accent, and they have drugged him to Pilate, the most powerful person in the country, and he's trying to figure out if he wants to be troubled with preventing this person's death or not. He's not sure that this exchange is worth his time. Pilate, fascinating, he sees power as a way to avoid situations he doesn't want to deal with. He sees power as something that puts him above menial problems that he doesn't want to have to engage with. Power for him is being able to be lifted up above the messy stuff so he can just focus on the things that he actually wants to do. He doesn't see power as weight to carry. He sees it as a privilege to wrap himself in. But Jesus, it's, in that passage, John 15, he says when he realized that the Father had put all things under his power. The Father put all things under his power. And Jesus doesn't see power as a privilege, something that insulates himself from problems. He sees it as a propulsion, like a responsibility to move towards people in need. Now, as people who follow Jesus, I think it's just worth remembering, a lot of times when we talk about power, we mean like there's a them or a they that we mean, like people that have more power than us. We couldn't mean us. We don't tend to have power. We think about other people that do. It's a little like how fast we drive on the highway. Anybody else here drive a little quicker than they should? Is that just me? Right? I can drive fast. I can drive above the speed limit. That's fine. But if you drive 2 miles an hour faster than me, you are a maniac. Right? We tend to think about other people in terms of power, but we forget that this applies to us. As disciples of Jesus, the first conversation is never really about what other people should do. It's how am I going to be an apprentice to Jesus in this way, in this moment? How am I going to be shaped by Jesus? And one of the first acts of creation is God gives power to humanity. Verse you might be familiar with, Genesis 1. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it, or govern it, or cultivate it, or steward it. Rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky and over every living creature that moves along the ground. And God said, I give every seed-bearing plant on the face of the earth and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. That part of what God does with humanity is he takes his creation and he gives it to people to have power over so that they can care for it and steward it. Fundamental to being human is to realize that we have power given to us by God. You do. And every time you grab your toolbox and your work gloves and head to the work site, you are going to you have a moment to express the God-given power and authority and influence that he gave you to help make the world what it should be. Every time you pick up a stethoscope and some scrubs, or you wake up in the middle of the night and you have to grab a bottle or a diaper, or your phone dings and you pick it up and you see a text thread and you have a chance to respond. That is a moment when you can decide, what am I going to do with the power, the influence, the voice that I have in this moment? Pilate is already searching for how he is above the situation because of his privilege. Most powerful person I know. Jesus, when God puts all things under his power, he sees it as something that he moves towards people for. Is kind of this drama continues in chapter 18. It says, then Pilate went back inside the palace, summoned Jesus, and asked him, are you the king of the Jews? Is this your idea? Jesus asked. Or did others talk to you about me? Am I a Jew? Pilate asked. Your own people and chief priests handed you over to me. What is it that you had done? Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders, but now my kingdom is from another place. So you are a king then, said Pilate. It's interesting, Pilate, with all of his power, he has his radar up for threats. Who can threaten my authority, my power? And as much as he is always looking for the person that is going to challenge the authority that he has. Part of this conversation is he is completely bewildered as to why this country preacher is hand-tied, dressed like a king, and standing in his patio this morning. But part of it is him trying to figure out, are you a threat to me? You know, many of us have ways that we try to keep our kingdom kind of right. We try to organize our kingdom. We try to keep our kingdom kind of clean and together. And it's not always by like outright force. In fact, I think most of us are far too polite, but we have all these ways that we do it. One way that I was thinking about it this week, are y'all familiar with the Enneagram? Yeah, it's a personality test, pretty robust one. Nothing's perfect like that, but it may be helpful. And one of the ways that they talk about different personalities and how they try to control situations or how they try to eliminate threats, maybe you could put it this way, is with these 9 different strategies. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to listen for how you might be trying to control your little kingdom. Maybe first is through perfection. You try to maintain control and eliminate threats by making sure that things are perfect, no risk, because everything will be in its right place. Do I have any folks there that's them? Or they're married to them? Or they have a roommate? Yeah, how about this? This is an interesting one. How about being helpful? Being helpful. I will eliminate all the threats by running around and taking care of everyone and everything and making sure that everybody has exactly what they need. And it looks so humble, but it's actually so prideful. I will fix every situation by helping everyone. 3, the achiever. The person who, like I, eliminate challenges to my authority, to my power, to my kingdom by achieving, and I will win. I will win everything. You are so tied into your March Madness bracket right now. I mean, like, you are going to control things, and it's going to be great. 4, by being unique. I will be different. Whatever you say doesn't apply to me because I'm special. It's so special. Do y'all remember, do y'all know Dr. Tuttle, Bob Tuttle? Okay, yeah. He's like if Clint Eastwood was a pastor. And I got to pick him up once at the airport, and I was driving him back, and he was asking me about ordination. And I told him I was not going through ordination, and he asked me why. And I said, Bob, I've never been a group T-shirt kind of guy. And he said, I don't understand that. And I said, when everybody's together in a group and they all wear the same, he goes, I get the metaphor, son. I just thought you were more humble than that. Thank you, Bob. I'm going to go in the back room and kick my own butt. I'll be back. That's how I tend to control things, 5, having information. I will be the person in the room that knows everything. You will not outknow me. Like, I will have all the facts. I have watched all the YouTube videos. I've read all the books. I will be the smartest person in the room. Next, safety. I will bubble wrap all the people that I love in every situation so that nothing ever goes wrong. I will be the most loyal person. I am the most safe person. I am a golden retriever on steroids. Next, distraction. The party people. We love the party people, don't we? I mean, they're fun, but that is, and it's so great when that's in a healthy mode, but it's a way of controlling situations sometimes and avoiding risk and fear as, everything's fine. Everything's fine, have a popsicle. 8, challenger, the challengers that push back on everything. That's how they control. I will not be controlled, which is a method of control. Or being the peacemaker that makes sure no one's mad. Are you mad? Because that would be a problem for me, so let me make you not mad. What do I have to do so that you're not mad? Maybe just a few little examples of how we control our little kingdom. Jesus, when the Father had put all things under his power, he knew that he had come from God. He knew that he had come from God. He did not walk around with a threat detector. He walked around knowing he was on a mission. I have not come here to protect my power. I have come here from God to do something. And every time you pick up your toolbox and your work gloves, or your stethoscope and your scrubs, or you pick up a diaper and a bottle, or you pick up your phone after it dings, you can know that you are on a mission. You have been sent by God into this world. You have power, and we can use it. We are supposed to use our voice, our influence, for the sake of the kingdom he is building. And that kingdom that Pilate and Jesus are fighting over, that line runs right through my own heart. The word that we translate in John, power, is exousia. Can you say that? It's exousia, yeah. It means probably what you might guess: authority, power, control, being in charge. It's an interesting compound word, though. Ex means out of. Ousia means substance or being or essence. Anything that comes out of your substance, your being, your essence, is an expression of power. That means that every time you open your mouth or step into a room or exchange money or sit down with someone at a dinner table, you have a chance for something to come out of you that is your authority, power, influence. that can be a part of the mission of God in the person's life that's on the other end of that. Pilate, as this goes on, says the Jewish leaders insisted, we have a law. According to that law, he must die because he claimed to be the Son of God. When Pilate heard this, he was even more afraid. And he went back inside the palace. Where do you come from? He asked Jesus. But Jesus gave him no answer. This is an interesting dynamic. Do you refuse to speak to me? Pilate said. Don't you realize I have power to either free you or crucify you? Jesus answered, you would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. You realize the person, the onlooker, sees the person with ultimate power and the person with no power. Why is it that this person with ultimate power, it says, became even more afraid? Or the person that looks like they have no power doesn't even feel the need to answer? Who is more secure in this interaction, and who is deeply insecure? When we fight to keep our kingdoms, when we fight with our threat radar up, we see other people's interactions as something that triggers our fear. Pilate is threatening to crucify him because he is afraid. It's interesting, even Christians, I know this can be shocking. Did you know sometimes Christians don't act like Jesus? No. I know. That sometimes even Christians, in the name of God, will see someone that they disagree with, don't like, want to push back on, whatever, and they get afraid that means that their world is changing, or that they're not in control, or that something is they're gonna lose control about something in their life. And so they ramp up their power, their voice, their strength, their authority in order to get the situation back. But Jesus, when he's confronted with someone that is threatening to kill him, he doesn't even feel the need to answer. He's that at peace. He's that at peace. It's not just that he had come from God. Maybe it comes from this, that he was returning to God. That Jesus knows that there is an accountability at the end of this, that I am going to answer to God the Father for how I use my power. And so I am accountable for that, which is not something any of us are very comfortable with, except Jesus seems to be. And Pilate's concern is what he's scared of. Jesus' concern is that he is going to look God the Father in the face and give an account for how he used what was his. That's a different kind of motivation. Having power doesn't mean that we won't give an account. It's not an avoidance of accountability. It's the assurance of it. The more authority we have in this life, the more account we will have to give. And so that toolbox, those scrubs, that bottle, that phone, you pick it up when it dings. Are you ready to give an account for how you used your voice? Because we are returning to the Father. Are you ready to look this God in the eye and say, I know you washed feet, but I went to war? Are we ready to have that kind of interaction? Maybe it's a good day to say, God, I'm sorry, I don't use my power the way you do. I don't use my power the way you do, and I want to change. I want that to be different. Chapter 19, when Pilate heard this, he brought Jesus out and sat down on the judge's seat, a place known as the stone pavement, which in Aramaic is Gabbatha. That Pilate, a sign of authority, especially in the ancient world, was to sit down in the room. This is the person with authority. I know in our culture, it's the person that stands in front of everybody, maybe. But in theirs, it's the person who got to sit. Maybe they were short on lawn chairs or something. But when Pilate, he sees power as a way to avoid problems he doesn't want to deal with. He sees power as something he has his threat radar up because he has to protect. He sees something, his power is actually ends up being flexed when he's motivated by fear, and that puts him in a seat of judgment. He said, this is what my power is for, so that I can sit in judgment over this situation and over the Son of God, over this country preacher with his hands tied who will not talk to me. Pilate sees his power as a chance to power up. But Jesus, when the Father had put all things under his power, he knew that he had come from God and was returning to God. And what does he do? He got up. Right? He took off his outer clothing. I won't be demonstrating that. He wrapped a towel around his waist and he washed his disciples' feet. My favorite bit, probably not the first time you've heard this, but just can you get over it? You know who's at the table? Judas. Judas. The man who's about to sell him out, and the one who has all authority and all power gets on his knees, takes Judas's feet in his hands and makes sure they're clean before he leaves the dinner table. Whew. What kind of power would you rather be around? What kind of power would you rather exhibit? It's just so rare that for Jesus, power from God makes him feel so secure, he can wash the feet of the person that hates him, and he's okay. Because in a little bit, he's going to die for that person. Pilate sees power as something to protect, something he's scared if he loses, something that actually causes him anxiety. Jesus sees power as because he's going to have to give an account, yes, but also he sees it as something he can lay down out of love. Remember, power comes from love. And don't we all know that? You know, the people with all the success in the world but no love are like the worst, right? And the people with all the power but no love are like the worst. But listen, you can do, I know you guys, you can do cancer diagnosis with love, can't you? You can walk through the hardest things in life with the love of God, can't you? You can go through unemployment with love, can't you? And when we see that love meet a chance to express itself in power, that is where heaven comes and touches earth a little bit more. Solomon wrote a psalm. This is just an example of the king at that time, most powerful person in the country. It's interesting how he talks about power. Psalm 72. Endow the king with your justice, God, the royal son with your righteousness. May he judge your people in righteousness, your afflicted ones with justice. May he rule from sea to sea, from the river to the ends of the earth. For he will deliver the needy who cry out, the afflicted who have no one to help. He will take pity on the weak and the needy and save the needy from death. He will rescue them from oppression and violence, for precious is their blood in his sight. See, this is an expression of what it's like to follow God with power. And here he's asking for it. He's asking for a chance to have authority, for a chance to have power. Why? Because there are people to serve. The needy need help. There are people in danger that need protection. There are the voiceless to give voice for. There's people to lay my life down for. As we wrap up today, just give you a couple of things to think about. First of all, where do you have authority and a voice and power? It may not come with any sort of position. What table do you sit around? Where do you show up to work? What neighborhood do you live in? Just maybe let the Lord bring to mind, where do you have some voice? And as I read this passage that we've already read once, just want you to let the Holy Spirit speak to you about how you could use it in a way that you know your power is from God, that you have come from God, that you are returning to Him so you can get up and serve. Let's close our eyes. It was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So, he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around. Jesus, make us like you. Amen.
Hey, we're so glad you tuned in today. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with anyone you think could benefit. We're excited about all the content we have coming up and can't wait for you to see it. Be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. And if you're curious about LaCroix, or if you're looking to take the next step on your journey with Jesus, check out lacroixchurch.org. We hope to see you again soon.